Hi, y'all. Well, I was answering some questions today from a subscriber about some cells that he received, and he was having a hard time getting them to top balance. And so I was talking to him about how top balancing works, because there's some math involved, and it takes a long time to top balance a lot of cells like this, large cells like this, with one of these small power supplies. And so I'd like to do a little video about it, because I had once before considered doing a video on all these power supplies that I've accumulated, and I really think it's important that I share that knowledge with y'all. So I want to tell you what these cost and what they do and how I use them. So let's get started. First, let's do a little math. These are 280 amp hour cells, and they arrive to you at about a 50% state of charge. So if you're going to charge these with a 5 amp power supply, now if you're just charging one, that's 140 is half of its capacity, and at 5 amps, that's going to take you 28 hours. If you're doing 16 of these in parallel to top balance them, well, that's 28 hours times 16. Yeah, it's going to take you 3 weeks. Okay. Well, that doesn't even count testing them. That's just top balancing them. Now, this subscriber was doing an 8-cell configuration, and he didn't think that the cells were charging because the voltage wasn't changing, and it won't. This chemistry, as you probably know, it has a steep charge curve at the beginning, and then it flattens out in the middle for a long, long time, and the voltage just doesn't change, tiny amounts, and then takes off at the end of the charge curve and heads for the moon. Okay, so if you're in the middle of that charge curve and you're charging with one of these 5 amp power supplies, or like this one, this is a 10 amp power supply, but because it's in the middle of the charge curve and the battery isn't empty, it's only charging at 5 amps. And that's what was happening with him. He had a 10 amp power supply, was charging at 5 amps, and wasn't getting anywhere. A couple of days goes by and nothing happens. Well, that's normal. It's going to take 10 plus or minus days to top balance 8 cells. It's going to take 20 to top balance this little beast. I have 16 of them. 16 of these batteries to build for my project and another project. And so I could not get by with that. Now, that's handy to have. But let me show you one by one what I've purchased and what it costs. There will be no affiliate links. I'm not making money off of trying to convince you to buy this charger or that charger. Just not my deal. All right, so this is one you might have seen before, Wamptek, and it is the EBC, EBC A40L. I think the most reasonable, best charger for the money, and many people own them. I bought this off of Amazon for around $300, $290, something like that. You can get them on AliExpress. You're going to wait a while. You can get them for a little bit less on AliExpress. You can get them, but if you get it from Amazon right now, last time I checked, you're going to wait a month to get it on Amazon for $300 plus tax or something like that. But this is a great power supply because now it only goes to 5 volts. but for individual cells or for top balancing, it's great. It supplies 40 amps. And it supplies a solid 40 amps. It doesn't taper off like most of these power supplies automatically do. This one is a little more complex, and you can hook it up to your old beat up cheap PC. In this case, a laptop that I never thought was going to fire up again because it just didn't work anymore. But for this purpose, it works fine. It's constantly plugged in because the battery died many years ago, and I watch it to make sure those batteries aren't like self-destructing in there. But this thing will discharge test at 40 amps, or it will charge at 40 amps. You can charge on the up, you can test on the upswing or on the downswing, and you can tell it where to cut off your amperage. So when you start pumping 40 amps into one of these cells and it gets to 3.65 volts in the cell, it will start to taper off the curve of the amperage, and then you can tell it where to shut off. I tell mine to shut off when it gets down to 1 amp. And so what I use this for, well, I use this for 3 things. I use this to test my individual cells in a discharge test at 40 amps, which is not huge. That's only a 14% charge cycle, but I just really can't afford to buy a larger unit. This was $300, all I can do. So it will test at 40 amp discharge. I also, though, use it to sometimes charge a cell up to get ready to test. I will charge it up if I don't have one charged up by other charge supplies, or if the other charge supply is too slow and power supply is too slow and the cell isn't quite ready when I'm ready to test it, I will go ahead and use this unit to go ahead and top that off, let it rest for just a little bit, and then use the same unit to discharge test it. What I also use it to do sometimes is to pump 40 amps into a top balance. If I'm top balancing these 16 cells, I don't want to spend forever doing that. And so if I use this unit to pump juice into it, I can get 40 amps in right here, right now. Now you can look at some of my other videos about top balancing, and you'll see that what I actually do is I will take all of these testers and I will put power supplies, and I will put them all onto a 16 cell top balanced unit, and I'll be putting in about 80 amps. Well, at 80 amps into this unit, I can get it done in a couple of 3 days instead of weeks. I can get it done in 2 days. It depends on what the state of charge is when I get started, but I can get it done rather quickly. Right now, I'm top balancing this. This is battery number 10 of the 16 that I'm building. This is just 16 cells I'm testing. But right now, I got this little power supply that I'm not using for anything else. I got it putting power in here. But I will also, pretty soon, I will also take this unit and I'll start dumping it into this top balance. And then there will come a time where I'll just say, okay, let's just get this thing top balanced, and I'll just take all these power supplies and dump them into this to get it top balanced so I can go ahead and put it together as a battery. My battery sat for weeks while I was building the solar shed for my friend, and recent videos that they don't ever seem to be very popular because they're about building stuff instead of batteries, but if you watch those videos, you'll see I've been very busy, one-man show building basically 2 buildings connected by a larger roof, and getting that thing dried in, sealed up, ready for the weather we just had. We just had some wet weather, cold weather, and we've had a few cycles of that being winter, and I've been quite busy, but in these last few days when it's been really cold, I stayed home and I worked on batteries. I got 2 batteries built, and I think I want to show y'all what that looks like. Just going to give you a little peek at yep, that's 9 batteries ready to go. I'm working on number 10. 6 more after that. A few cells. A few more after that. All right. So that is my numero uno favorite one. Now this one will go 0 to 5 volts. This Wamptek will go 0 to 5 volts at 60 amps. It never really produces 60 amps because the battery would have to be flat ass dead for it to produce 60 amps. When I put this on an empty cell that has just been tested down to 2.5 volts, it will start at about 45 amps and start to drop down pretty quickly as it starts to bring that voltage up. And so what I'll typically do is I'll use this one, and that's these big handles right here. And so what's happening here, let me explain what's going on here. This is the EBC40AL, the nice tester. That's this one. Right now, it's doing a discharge test on this cell number 241. Well, the next one to be tested is this one. And I need to get this one up to 100% state of charge to get ready for that. So right now what I have going on here is I have 2 power supplies feeding energy into it. I have this power supply, which is this one that's putting in, come on focus, 9.6 amps. And then I have this Wamptek that is putting in 16.7 amps. So I'm putting 26 amps into this cell right now. So hopefully, about the time that this one is discharged, dumping that many amps into this one will have it up to a full state of charge and ready to be tested. But as soon as this gets ready to get tested and I pull these power supplies off, what am I going to do with them? Well, I'm going to take this one right here. It's a Ryden that I put together. Now this one was $200 for the parts that get put together. You can look on YouTube for videos about how to assemble it, but you buy this one in parts, and it's a really nice power supply. I really like it. I like this one too. The Wamptek is really nice also. It's easy to use. It's one of my go-to power supplies. And what's going to happen is, when this is finished testing, it's going to be fully discharged at 2.5 volts. I will then take this Wamptek and I will put it on here and start bringing that up off the bottom quickly with 45 amps, which will become 35 amps. And it'll eventually, in a pretty short order, in an hour or two, it will get the voltage of this up to where it's not way different, because it's in the middle of the curve, it's not way different than these other cells. And you see how this looks like a top balance? Well, it's kind of a top balance, but what I'm really doing here is, when I get this cell up off the bottom, I'll then take a couple of bus bars and I'll connect them, and I'll let these other cells start slowly moving energy into this cell. And I might take this little charger right here, and it's just it's a 0 to 60 volt, which means I can charge a 48 volt battery with it, but only at 5 amps. It's a 0 to 60 volt 5 amp charger. And I have a video that talks about how I used to use this charger and it died. And I contacted the seller, Wamptek, and after much discussion back and forth, it's a video I have about how to deal with warranties on AliExpress. Eventually, they replaced this $60 charger with this slightly nicer, I think, $85 charger, and I got it from Amazon, and they recompensed me for that. So I actually did get a warranty claim settled from something I bought from AliExpress. It took quite a few back and forth, and I did not tell them that I had a YouTube channel because I did not want to influence them in any way. And then I made a video about how I did this, and they did know that I had a YouTube channel after they agreed to change this out. I think that's how that worked. And so so now this one is dead, but I show it here because it just had a rectifier or something that died on it, and it was a $60 charger, and this is a lot of people buy. This is a slightly nicer one and same capacity, and it's been working fine ever since. I have this one over here. It's the 30 amp 0 to 30 volt 0 to 10 amp charger, and this one, I think that one was $79, $80 from AliExpress. So you see, I have a lot of choices as to how I can use these units. So back up here, let me just finish this thought for you. So this cell gets finished, I move it over and start discharging this cell. These chargers, these two chargers that are charging this cell now, one of them starts to bring energy back into this just depleted cell, while I take the other charger, which is the riding unit, and I'll move it over to the next cell being charged. So I have all of these charged for testing. I have all of these cells have been tested. I'm working on this one right now, and this one's next, and then I'll work my way down this direction. And as I do so, I'll disconnect this next cell to be tested, and I'll go ahead and charge it up. All the rest of these will be at a similar state of charge as I keep adding energy back into the ones that have tested or about to be tested, and keeping them in about the 50% state of charge range, or getting them there. And this one, which was the last one I tested, I went ahead and put this 5 amp tester directly on the terminal after I tied it in, because right now these bus bars are bringing energy into this cell, but so is this tester. And so by the time I get finished with this cell and ready to move to the next one, this one will have been brought up to the same level as all these others. There's no heat involved. There's very little amperage moving through these bus bars into this cell, because the voltage difference is very close, very similar. So, have I covered it all? Well, one more thing. I get a lot of questions about this tester. This is the tester I use for milliamp resistance testing in millivolts, and in basically 0.4 decimal places after that millivolts. And it's how I test the resistance in these cells, but it is also how I test for voltage in these individual cells. If I want to see how many volts a cell has, so I can try to do this. My wife was here, this would be a whole lot easier. So I've got 3.2998. And that's about where these cells are when you receive them, something like that. And if I test this last cell that I am trying to bring back up to where everything else is, if I test it, it is at 3.2829. So it is not, it's a hundredth of a volt different than these others, but that's a lot in the middle of, because state of charge, that's a lot in the middle of this rather flat charge curve. Okay, well, I hope that I have cleared a little of this up for y'all. I've been wanting to do a video about, and I actually did a video about these testers and chargers before, but I just didn't like it and didn't upload it. And then working through the questions that this subscriber had this morning, I realized that I was remiss in not sharing the information that I had learned in this journey that I'm taking. And so I just told him, I'm going to make a video for you and I'll upload it right away. I'll just do it right now. I'll upload it right away and keep your eyes peeled for it. I hope this helps him and others. Y'all take care. I'm going to keep doing it. The weather has turned. It's sunny outside again. So tomorrow I'll be back on the construction site as a carpenter. And I'll try to keep these batteries going, but I come home so tired and I kind of let them sit sometimes after I start working real hard out there on the construction site. But we'll see. I'll try to keep these going. I at least need to get this battery that I'm top balancing right now. I need to go ahead and get that assembled into a battery instead of a collection of cells. Have you subscribed to my channel yet? Are you watching my videos and not subscribing to my channel? Please subscribe to my channel. It's small. It's only this big. Please subscribe to the channel because people need to see it, and they don't see it. The algorithm doesn't know about it unless you subscribe. Like, share, comment. All those things matter. All those things help get this information out to others that need it. And that's what this is all about. Take care. Let's build some batteries. Bye-bye.